This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
So reactive abuse is an in-the-moment reaction to mistreatment from another person. When a victim reacts, the abuser uses this reaction to import further abuse in the form of blame shifting. Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah, and I was definitely trying to rise above it all a couple of minutes ago because your boy's microphone was not connected. And I was like, look, we don't got time for this. What's going on? I was getting a little heated. Just because it's been a while, and it's so funny when things don't work how they are supposed to, and when they need to, right? When they need to is the worst part, because it was like, I planned this. I've been looking forward to talking about this because I saw Wicked. Oh man, I saw Wicked. And I was very excited to see this film for a lot of reasons. When I came to sit down and record, I was like, it's go time. And my microphone was like, no, it's not. It's like, no, it's not, Isaiah Frizzell. We are going to take our time going through this, and you will be frustrated. But sometimes all you need is a little reset. A person does one thing is how they do everything, huh? If my voice is fading in and out, it's just because, with the seasons change, come a little sickness. So I've been fighting that a little bit. So I'm doing my best. That's why you guys didn't get an episode from me last week. Didn't really have a voice. Sinuses were crazy. And your boy was just on the struggle bus, but we're here now. Yes. It's almost the end of the year. How you feel? How are you feeling? It's the holiday season. I had a very awesome workshop a couple of weeks ago. I have another awesome workshop coming up, and it's just going to be great. Actually, this workshop is about letting go, right? And while I'm talking to you guys, I'm singing Defying Gravity in my head. We'll get to that. But this upcoming workshop is going to be about just letting go. And how important that is, and what it looks like, and what it feels like, and all that good stuff. And in terms of letting go, again, I went to see Wicked, and Wicked, I enjoyed so much. I saw the show, the Broadway show. My mom took me to see the Broadway show a few years back, actually. It's one of my favorite shows. I didn't read the book because I typically have this little rebel thing when it comes to Isaiah, where it's like, everything that everybody else is harping about, I typically don't engage in. It's just a little rebellious thing. So when the book came out when I was younger, and I remember like hearing about it, I didn't know too much about what it was. So it just never came to pass. And Wicked, if you don't know, tells the story of how the Wicked Witch of the West became who she is, like a little spinoff. Um, and when I saw this movie, when I watched the Broadway show, there were certain elements of this that just resonated with me so much. And, taking it from, um, you know, a psychology or a social psychology perspective and standpoint, there are a lot of things I was picking up on. So I was literally in the movie theater taking notes on my phone, and my boys and I, we were like, yo, just catching the little subtleties. Now, coming from a background of acting and filmmaking and psychology, you throw all that in the mix. Whenever I go to a movie, I am looking at a few things. It's kind of funny. I am typically looking at the chemistry between two actors. I'm looking at the shots. I'm such a geek for like a nice shot, especially like horror movies when they have like a little noir kind of feel to them. I love low light camera work. Just because I love horror flicks, so it's like when you really get that off, I'm like, man, that's dope. Or just camera movement, I'm really appreciative of. Or edited. I listen to the writing, right? If it flows well or if it's kind of choppy. I even look at the color themes that they choose in movies, because that in itself is something that adds to the story, and also in terms of like the audience, like how we feel, and music, of course. And when I sit in a movie, it's been a little bit easier to move away from it. But like when I was really in school, and like even up to a couple of years ago, it was very hard for me to just sit and enjoy a movie. Very tough. Um, and not in a bad way. It's just kind of like how I navigate. Okay. And Wicked. I'm getting off topic, but Wicked was one of those movies where I just couldn't help but really just take it all in. Okay. So, the good witch and the bad witch. Off the jump, there was in the very beginning, the good witch was asked, if you guys were friends, and how she was responded was very interesting to me. And we see that a lot in society, right? It's you will always be a villain in somebody else's story. You will always be a villain in somebody else's story. And a lot of times people may not tell how they contributed to you getting to the point that you got to, right? Like they say, manipulation is when they tell you how you should react to their disrespect, or they play victim to how you reacted to how they treated you. And, in this movie, it is just kind of like this whole idea of, there's one story, there's the story A, there's story B, and then there's the actual truth. Funny enough, I'll never forget, I was talking to one of my old high school friends about this, and I remember I was a part of a organization in school, and this is like a big community organization, and I was a part of it. And I remember, like in any space, there's typically like a popularity or a hierarchy kind of deal. So in this particular situation, I remember there was a trip to go see Wicked. There was actually a trip to go see Wicked and check it out. And from my understanding, it was fair game for everybody. Like, you were allowed to go. However, that didn't happen, right? The head honchos, right? We'll call them the Glindas, um, had kind of handpicked who got to go. And in the grand scheme, it shouldn't have been left up to them. It shouldn't have been left up to them, right? Because they were a part of the organization. They were not the overseers of it. but it came down to popularity. And it was like a core memory unlocked only recently, because when I was talking to my friend about it, I was like, hey, I saw Wicked. I was like, wait, you remember blah, 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 and I started listing them off. And one person's name I still can't remember for the life of me, and it's fine. But it really, when I saw Wicked, and even when I saw it on Broadway, there was always this underlying feeling. And when I sat there to see, and I was like, why do I feel this certain level of uneasiness? Not just about the story, but I was like, there's something that is tied to this for me. And then I finally remembered, oh, that's why. Because back in high school, I had a very interesting experience with Wicked. This, man, how do I explain it? This particular show really, to me, showcased friendship. And friendship in such a way where sometimes it doesn't go both ways, right? It doesn't go both ways. And it can be very unfortunate. However, the perception of what it is can be very biased too. Okay. And in the movie, there's the microaggressions, there's the, subtle prejudices, right? It was just so well done. And I think a lot of times, depending on who you are sitting in the audience, you will catch certain things because it will apply to your very human experience. And it was just done so well. Okay. Scapegoat. Without giving anything away, the concept of a scapegoat was very big in the film too. And how many times has it been that one person is used as a scapegoat to kind of overthrow or convince everybody else of what needs to be done, or what's bad, or what's good? Okay, and even the concept of selfishness and fairness was kind of turned on its head, right? And also, there's this other element of, people may not like you until they like what you do for them, okay? Or sometimes it may be perceived that someone likes you more than they actually do, but they like the potential of what you have to offer them. And then when you no longer offer them that thing, then you are no longer of use or of benefit. And even if there is kind of like this discrepancy between your relationship with them, how they spin it, okay, or who they tell or how they tell it, may villainize you, right? It's so funny because sometimes, or a lot of times, people have this expectation that you are not allowed to have a response to their disrespect. And because you responded in such a way that they did not appropriate or they did not give you permission, now you are a bad person. And there's this understanding that if you tell somebody long enough that they are a bad person or they can't do this, they will start to behave in that way or they will start to think it. Okay? And sometimes when it comes to how you betray an individual, you may want to bypass that much sooner. Okay? Much sooner than they have the ability to heal from it. Okay? What we need to understand about like uncomfortable feelings and uncomfortable experiences is no one likes to feel uncomfortable. Okay? No one likes to feel uncomfortable. And then to sit with this idea or responsibility that you have harmed someone, that's even more uncomfortable. And since people can't always sit with that reality, they will do their best to reframe the reality. Okay? I treated this person poorly. Well, it had to be a reason that I treated them poorly, right? They did this, or they look like this, or I heard this about them, or well, I saw this. And was I sure that's not really, but I there's got to be a reason. I need to feel good about treating this person poorly. Okay? I need to feel good about treating this person poorly. And truthfully, in this movie, it was a witch hunt. There's all these subtleties in terms of like how society really functions. Okay. You hear one story, or if the person is speaking loud enough, their story is believable, or if the person is in a particular position in society, it is very easy to believe what they say versus the individual who may have already had a charge against them for one reason or another. Okay. It is very easy to criticize them. Sometimes in life, it is very hard to just not respond. It's very hard to not respond. And because you don't respond, sometimes people will continue to push until you finally push back. Okay? Until you finally push back. And sometimes when it comes to friendship and relationships and connections, people, what people value will come into view, okay? And what people are willing to sacrifice for those values will also come into place, right? Will also come into place. And when that happens, there can be a separation because sometimes friendships are predicated on proximity and proximity alone. And then when things get thick, it's like, ooh, well, I'll go this way and you kind of go that way. We have different views. And sometimes the reason why we have different priorities is because somebody may be more fearful of image and access, right? Or perceived societal ridicule, okay? Versus the actual quality of the relationship that they exist in. People are always choosing, always choosing, always choosing. Okay, and sometimes optics is more important, much more important. And we all have it to some degree, right? Like if you think about who you choose in a relationship or who you choose to date, ask yourself, am I choosing them because of who they are as a person, or am I choosing them because of how they will look to other people? Right? What is the choice that I'm making about my partner? Who is it for?
Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger Delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
Who is it for? A lot of times we may not readily admit how superficial of a choice we're making. It's so other people can approve of us, right? If I have this person, they're attractive, they're this, they're that, then that makes me look more attractive, or that means that my decision making is more respectable. Okay. There was even some elements of like parental dynamics in there, right? Favoritism and, you know, giving what can't even be used just out of spite. And obviously it tied to the story in itself. I don't want to give too much away for you guys. I really just want to take it from the societal perspective, right? But giving certain things to certain children out of spite for the other one, even though that kid can't even use it. It's like, I want to give this to you because I don't want this person to have it so much. And I've even noticed that in friendships too, where it's like, we talk about social media and support on social media a lot. You'll watch a person readily support someone who they don't know doing the same thing as their friends. And it's kind of like, well, I just don't want them to have this, so I will give it to I will give it to someone else. And what a concept, right? It's like, well, why would someone do this? Sometimes people need to feel okay with how they are treating you so they can feel okay about who they are. Okay? There's also this one quote in there that said, "Magic is the mind's attempt to wrap around the impossible." Magic is the mind's attempt to wrap around the impossible. And magic can be a lot of things, right? It can be, replace magic with religious beliefs, religious practices, how you speak about certain things in people who may not align with what you align with, right? You remove the idea that people can be people, and you use things that are intangible as a ways to justify your feelings, your thought process, or closed-mindedness. Okay. Wicked was really like a cool, just a psychological observation that I really did value, appreciate, and enjoy. And also just kind of this understanding that, sometimes people will like what you do, they will like what you offer, but they just don't like you, right? They like everything that you have to offer, but they never take the time to like you, or they don't even like that it's you that has it. Okay? Sometimes people feel that you don't deserve to be who you are, and they deserve it more, or they feel more entitled to it. And that's where envy and jealousy can come up too. And sometimes you have this concept of, weaponized incompetence or willful ignorance or privilege, okay, where a person moves through life and they believe that everything that they don't have and that they want is unjust, okay? And there's a willingness sometimes to take from other people what they can't have or they can never attain. And that's character. It was really cool because if you know the original story of The Wizard of Oz, right, and then you go and watch Wicked, it tells how things have came to be, or even the concept of flying monkeys, how that all started, right? Flying monkeys is a term for some level of narcissistic abuse, right? Where you have this person who sends out people to constantly keep eye or keep tabs on one particular person or a couple of people, it doesn't matter. But the flying monkeys, right? But even in the movie, this concept was, it was shown how it came to be. And I thought that was so cool too. Like a lot of the terminology or the things that we think about will show up in film, of course, but it's something that's really an oversight or that we don't give much attention to just because it's like, well, it's a part of the movie. Okay. But sometimes people, and this is not making excuses for how malicious or vicious some individuals are and how they try to justify that. But sometimes people are not always the problem. Sometimes people have been treated like a problem, and the ones who should have been addressed and course corrected never were because society deemed them good or society deemed them innocent or society deemed them more culturally appropriate, okay, or more attractive, right? Or prettier or the right complexion. So therefore, they can't be bad. But you have this person, okay, because of the color of their skin. Let's call a spade, because of the color of their skin and the mystique behind who they are and how they move through life. Just by being born, they're a problem. And then you may have these magnificent elements of who they are that are amazing and out of this world. And then it becomes this appropriation of like, I'll take what you are good at and I'll take those qualities because it can work for me. However, the moment you have a problem or the moment you go against me, immediately I will treat you like a villain. And it will be very easy to label you as that because, well, society already thinks less of you anyway. You guys get where I'm going? This was such an amazing movie for understanding context and understanding subtleties and understanding how stereotypes even come to exist. And understanding like sometimes it's not that a person has reacted this way. Look at what it took. Look at what they went through to get to this point. You know, look at how they were treated. Sometimes there's this demand that you constantly turn the other cheek. Okay? And sometimes turning the other cheek means that you just allow a person to slap you in the other one. And sometimes you will have at least one person, and all it takes is one person to truly believe and value you. And the way that works is if you yourself lean into that energy of that individual. Okay? We can be influenced by a lot, but it does require our participation to change for better or for worse. We always have a choice. And when it comes to friendship, sometimes there will be a person who's more of a friend or willing to be more of a friend to another individual. And that can hurt when it's not returned. That can hurt. And hurt looks like different things, okay? Hurt can look like a few different things. And sometimes the person who is responsible for the pain, they won't go and tell everybody what they did. They won't go and tell everybody the history of the entire friendship either, because they need to be perceived as good. They need to be perceived as innocent. They need to be perceived as the one who was deeply affected by the friendship. But they won't always tell the effort that the other person put into that friendship. Okay? There were so many layers in this movie that I genuinely enjoyed and in the story itself. And I think the reason why it resonated with me so much is just because, you know, when you do experience life, you go through the realities of what life has to offer, and you do defy gravity, right? You do go through these experiences of relationships kind of taking a turn and what and who people were choosing for whatever reason and having to go your separate ways, okay? Or you do experience where people like everything that you do, but the fact that is you doing it, they have a problem. Or you do go through these spaces where people expect you to always be accommodating, okay? Even though they are being disrespectful, they are making attempts to devalue who you are as a person, even your education, okay? Your expertise, all right? And in some way, shape, and form, they know what they are doing. And they know how the world may perceive you to respond to them, so they weaponize that. At some point in time, you will truly always have the opportunity to just be yourself. And the people that actually deserve to be in the company of that and experience that will always be around, right? I learned this from a personal space. I've learned this from a professional space. And I think now I'm in the season of life, or just a permanent season, where that's just how I understand it. The goal is to not make people like you. Okay? If you know that your heart is pure, okay, and your intentions are good, that's all you can worry about. And yes, there will be people who will try to make you look worse. The reason why is because they haven't made any attempts to be better, right? They made no attempts to be better. Sometimes you will have to go against the grain, period. Sometimes what's right won't always feel right. Okay? But when you stand up for something and you do fight for what you believe in, and you do pursue the greater good, sometimes you will be an outlier. And it's scary, right? It's not to say that that's easy to do, which is why a lot of times people choose the status quo. I mean, look at society as a whole. Even something that comes to mind for me is like dating, right? The truth of the matter is dating culture is not the best representation of adult relationships. However, there are a lot of facets of it that are appropriated. Okay? A lot of like very lazy behaviors that are appropriated in a dating culture. But everybody's doing it, so it's all good. Or it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be that big of a deal. But it is a big deal. It's a big deal to everybody involved. But not everybody's experiencing it on a receptive end at the same time. Okay? So when you step out of that space, you will feel a little different. You might feel villainized. You might feel like an outcast, even in friendship. Okay? There's a certain way that friendship goes. And in this movie, it shows how someone may be a friend very early on. Okay? And they're consistent in certain ways. Right? And then another individual, without necessarily fully repairing, will desire that accompaniment. Okay? Or there will never really be any consequences for how they moved or how they functioned. That's life. So I want you to just remember, your only goal in life is to be who you are. Someone sees you, somebody sees the value in you. And truth be told, there is no, let's say, there is the objectively good and bad. People try to play semantics with what's good and what's bad. And yeah, sometimes there's a blurred line. However, objectively, we know what's up. All right? So yeah, there was just so much to unpack for this movie, and I went to see it with my bros, like I said, and we talked about it afterwards. And there were just so many elements that I appreciated and understood from a personal level, in terms of a wicked friendship. Okay, and sometimes being more than the world you're born into, or being more than your environment. And sometimes that will take you a little bit further away from what you're used to and what you're comfortable with. We are only in control of our own behavior. And to be in control of your own behavior does not mean to dismiss how you are made to feel, how you were treated, and what you're subjected to. That has impact. And to demand that a person continues to show up and be happy when they are in an environment where they're treated poorly, actively, repetitively, consistently, oh, that's unjust. That is wicked work. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I hope this podcast, this little think piece was a cool one. Yeah, I can talk so much, and like I said, I don't want to give anything away, but in that movie there were so many moments of social commentary, and even outside of like the school setting, it goes to show how that continues to carry into our adult lives, right? But sometimes you will do great things without you even noticing it, and the reason why you will do great things is because you've experienced great hardship. All right? Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take flight.